What am I trying to get out of this? Am I trying to show empathy? Am I trying to have fun and shoot the shit? I don't care how your day's going. So like, why would I bother asking you and wasting your time and telling me if I didn't care? And that was my mentality, right? I'm down here and this guy's up here.
Yeah.
This guy is literally sticking his neck out for me.
You should never pedestalize people, no matter how big they are. When somebody was yelling at you or accusing you of lying, right? Never. But when somebody...
Because like, there's no point in me like... arguing it.
But you did. No, I didn't, but you did.
Oh yeah, on this post, on this date, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, show me. And it's like, now we're getting so far off track. Like you have to be willing to do things at 100% and say like, is this how the best person does it? Well, I have to aspire to do that. You want a black belt? Well, showing up once a week is not going to get you there, or you need to accept the reality that it's going to take 20 years.
Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to the Long-Term Podcast. I'm your host, Advin Villa. Today, we have co-founder of Spare Bedroom Studios and the on-camera host behind the Conversationalist, roundtable culture, sports, headlines, and real-life debates, and Solo Spotlight, one-on-one interviews built around people's stories and turning points. Outside the studio, he works full-time in Alberta's public sector within the law enforcement space, and he's currently studying psychology, bringing a calm, curious, no BS approach to conversations that are equal parts entertaining and human. Everybody welcome Ryan Macdougall. We will discuss podcasting, psychology, and telling stories. Now at Spare Bedroom Studios, Ryan's goal is simple: give people a platform, whether it's a creator, entrepreneur, athlete, first responder, or someone with a story that doesn't usually get airtime. Ryan is a phenomenal person. I was just at his podcast a month ago, and he really knows how to listen, and he's curious, and he asks all the right questions. Being able to balance kind of being in the law enforcement space and learning psychology with the podcast, and he's got a fiance. He's making it all work. He's very inspiring, and I think he has a very, very inspiring philosophy, very positive person, and very compassionate. And he assumes people are innocent until proven guilty, which is a lot of people don't do, and just very hard to embody. But Ryan is an absolute beauty. Guys, welcome Ryan Macdougall. All right. Welcome to the Long-Term Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Ryan Macdougall, everyone. Fellow podcaster, too.
That's right. Yeah.
So how do you shift your hosting style between the round table and the one-on-one interview formats?
So great question to start. So just for the viewer context, 2 shows, Solo Spotlight and the Conversationalist. I think it's just different vibes. Like one is with some friends that I have, buddies at work that I've knew for a long time.
Oh, and sorry.
Yeah.
Alexa, stop. Got the Alexa. Yeah.
And the other one is more of like interviews that I have with people that I don't know, as well as I think the way that I would change my style is it's just intention, what I'm trying to get out of the conversation, what my goal is, and then I use that to form what type of energy I'm going to have, even when it comes to shifting my style between guests on Solo Spotlight. Depending on who I'm having, the musician might be the same as a comedian, but the comedian's not going to be the same as someone who is recovering from an addiction. So the level of empathy or the language I'm able to use or the amount of space I need to give them, some people, you need to bring it out in them, and it takes 10 to 15 minutes to kind of break the ice. Whereas some people, they've been on mics all the time. So you need to almost like let them cook right away to show them that respect of like, you kind of already know what you're doing. Right. That's a big thing that I learned, but I think what I learned the most is like, you got to find out what your goal of that 60 minutes is, and then go from there of like, what am I trying to get out of this? Am I trying to show empathy? Am I trying to have fun and shoot the shit? how am I trying to actually like platform this person? And when I look at the roundtable conversations, it's definitely relinquishing more control and more letting it flow, or like seeing what your role is in that group of people. Whereas like I know on a one-on-one conversation I'm the host, but as a group of people you have to say like, okay, am I the moderator here, or am I the one answering the questions? Am I the one that's playing devil's advocate? Am I the one that's playing? And you have to think about what role you're playing in that group, because not everybody can be the moderator. So if someone takes control of that, so say my co-host Rich, say he's kind of keeping the topics going, I have to almost relinquish control and say, okay, I'm going to be more of the commentary in this episode than I am. But sometimes he comes and he wants me to lead it. So then I know, okay, when I have to notice when like a conversation's dying and go like, so speaking of this, and like find out how to transition from like a different, pop culture topic or sports topic, or asking compelling questions. But that's very fluid, right? And then we have two other hosts. One's a producer and one's as well, like helping with the production. So Mark and Lewis, they also have to figure out, well, like, what's my role? Because it's not 25% of shared talking time. It's like 40, 35, and then basically 12 and a half, 12 and a half, if that maths. I think it does. I think that maths. But yeah, that's kind of how it works, right? But again, it's what's the intention here? What's the goal of this conversation? Am I trying to make it funny? Okay, well, like I need to understand that there might be less structure and there might be more debates and it might be more fun. Whereas the one-on-one interviews, there's a goal in mind, and like there's things that I'm trying to hit to make sure that I'm highlighting the guest properly.
Yeah, it's essential to have these intentions, because you need to have an objective, right? Like especially when you're recording, right? It's not just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's you're trying to establish whether it be their story or a virtue, such as discipline or connection. And with your roundtable, it's more just like your group of friends, right? And you guys talk about a certain topic, and you talk about random things, or like sports,
and it's more, it's like current news, sports, music, that type of just what's going on in the world, right? Some of the topics can be heavier than other. Like one of our co-hosts, he always likes to mention who like passed away. Like he always says like this act, and we kind of made it into one of those things of like, oh, Rich, like tell us who died this week, like, kind of, because that's but he's doing it out of like being like graceful about it and saying like, I remember this person, and it's always famous people. It's not like people in his personal life, but it's like this actor passed or this athlete passed. But it's it's meant to be like a cool hang, right? Like you're hanging out with buddies, you're shooting the shit. But there is a goal in mind, right? Like we have this all structured beforehand of like, this is what we're going to talk about. But when you look at it, it's definitely more opinion based. It's more, would it be subjective, or would it be like more like just thoughts and feelings rather than like grounded in like reality, where it's like, Lewis is talking about like his crush with Sydney Sweeney, and like, just like silly things like that, where a lot of it, it doesn't like, there's not actually like a fact in mind, where it's like, oh, we have to be like grounded in reality here. Like we tell a story, but then it's like, we could just get off into like what ifs or how you feel about this. And not a lot of that is like, you can't like grade that in a way, right? Where if I'm having a one-on-one conversation, I either ask the right questions or I don't ask the right questions. So it's very interesting, because you have to be more willing to like see those group exercises or those group like episodes. It comes with a lot more structure than you would think, and just kind of knowing your role, right? And that's something where it's been like the biggest challenges of us is just like figuring out that role, right? Where I know if I'm on a one-on-one. I know that I'm hosting. I know I'm asking the questions.
Yeah, there's definitely a different dynamic when it comes to the group dynamic versus the one-on-one.
Mhm.
In the group dynamic, it's less personal, right? It's a lot more comedic, I find.
Yeah.
And yes, you may have an objective, but it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more laughs, and you don't want to go into tangents.
No.
And then you don't want to be talking too much. Usually it's like one words here and there. And then when you're telling a story, it's quick and you go for it and there's intention. But with one-on-ones, it's a lot more personal. There's a lot more monologues and there's a lot more feelings associated with it.
100%.
You know what I mean? When you're talking to someone just one-on-one, it's intimate.
Yeah.
It's very intimate. I find that if I'm in a group dynamic, like not even just in a podcast, like I feel like, yes, there's certain times I feel connected, but like you don't get to know like the other person as well. You get to know how they function in a group setting, and you get to know their humor, but you don't really get to know their past. Or like you still can, but it's less. There's less elaboration.
And what's interesting with that too is that some people shine in that group setting and like bomb when it comes to the interview, because like some people are able to show like their like comedic talents or how they feel about certain things if the attention isn't solely on them, because that like screws them up, right? Whereas they're doing the same thing, but like to them, they share the room with 3 other people, right? And so it's very, very interesting because some people show their best selves when you don't put like the spotlight on them, right? Where some people I've had for a one-on-one interview, and then we have had them stay on to be a guest on the Conversationalists. And you could tell there was like a huge change in how they would act if like they just felt more comfortable, right? And it's about like making that person comfortable. But it's even with the group dynamic, like I think there's a lot more logistics involved of like mic discipline, of figuring out like, okay, like we have a lot of problems where like Mark and Lewis will like talk to each other, but like they don't really understand that like that's all coming through on the mic while me and Rich are talking, right? So it's interesting in that sense where a one-on-one conversation, logistically, it's easier because like everybody's sitting still, everybody's shooting the shit. But like, what if we're talking about a certain event? Well, I need to trust that Mark can like find that on the internet and like show us that picture, right? So like the amount of training that it takes, like on the technology side, on the logistics side, like where you look at like sports commentary, it's like you just think they're talking back and forth, but it's like they have a system in place of like he talks, then he talks, then he talks, then the guy at the start talks. And they have a system in place to know when it's their time to talk, right? And they're like pointing at each other while because they're not on camera, right? So they can like, but there's a system in place where it's like, I go, then you go, then he talks, and then every second time this guy talks, right? So you kind of know your place. So it's a lot more training involved with that sense, where having a one-on-one conversation, well, when I stop talking, you start talking. And when you stop talking, I start talking. But now you add 2 other people. And it's like, oh, now what do we do? Right?
There needs to be structure involved for everybody to have fun.
Yeah.
Because if you're in a group setting and if you're the only one talking about me, you're never asking questions, a lot of people get uncomfortable. They just don't want to listen to you ramble unless they ask for advice, unless it's actually they're asking for it.
And a blessing that I've had is the fact that I have been able to go between both sides. So I'm starting to learn a little bit more of the understanding of like, oh, this topic's like dead now. Okay, let's like keep it moving, right? Where starting off, that was not like a skill or trait that I had to understand like, oh, okay, like we've kind of now we're spinning our tires a bit, or like getting from one topic to the next, right? Where it's like, well, how do I connect this topic? Because if we get too far into football and NIL money and all of this, like, how do we bring this back to like what our favorite movies of 2025 were? It's like, it's so abrupt and it's such like a U-turn that you almost have to like let it go a little bit farther and then like find a way to like link these two things to keep the conversation going. Because if you let it die, it's just like everybody looks around and it's like, okay, well, what are we talking about now? Where I started to understand that through like one-on-one conversations where you're like, well, it's the same thing. Like, how do I gracefully talk about this guy's music as well as his sobriety journey? And like, where in that story can I connect that? And when's a good opportunity for me to like close this chapter of the book and open this chapter of the book? Because if you do it too abruptly, your guest is like, wait a minute, what are we talking about?
Yeah, and it's the flow, and you need to have the dialogue that they can understand. But if you start talking in a way that doesn't make sense, or you use too many big words, or you interrupt and you try to expand it, and like when you try too hard too, I find that certain guests just get confused, right? But if you just let it flow, pique on your curiosity and make sure it's coherent, and you don't have to add on. You know what I mean? Because sometimes, like I feel like, oh, I want to add something. I need to add something. You just like end it at that, and that's that.
Right.
So, what's been the most surprising or significant real world impact one of your interviews has had on a guest?
Great question. I think the big thing that I value the most is like that feedback that someone said, like, hey, I had some like very like influential people in my life that like I just see them as really good friends. But then I say I had Aiden was his first name. And he came on and he was a hockey player. He played junior hockey, and he was living up in Northern Ontario. He was playing for a hockey team. He was diagnosed with epilepsy, like a very, very like, talking about like the first time his parents saw him have a seizure. And I had a friend that reached out to me and he said like, hey, like I've been diagnosed with epilepsy for years. And like, it was really, there were a lot of things that I tried to digest that I didn't know how, but like hearing someone talk about it, it made me feel like a little bit more comfortable and like seeking like to find out how to actually deal with this. Or like someone's able to, reignite their flame, where I've had guys come on and they were artists and I was able to ask them questions that started an internal thought in themselves, where they would reach out to me afterwards and say like, oh, like this was exactly what I needed. Like I realized how much I love music and like this is going to keep me going and like keep me doing it. Like this was a good, like, a lot of questions you made me think about. And now like I can go back and like this is going to actually like drive my passion. So those are like the two things, like impact and like how someone felt, or like touching them on like a personal level, as well as like providing that inspiration for people as the guest. Like I always say, I want it to be as much as a benefit to the guest as to the audience, right? Like I want the guest to leave and feel like they've got value out of it, and I didn't siphon their energy, or I didn't basically just take their story and try to monetize it. I actually like asked enough questions to get like the gears turning in their own head. So then it's like, well, there's a value in me having that human connection with them and having that conversation. And because of that, there's like an external value. But like, it's really, for me, it's like guest first, right? And like going back to like understanding the structure and conducting interviews, knowing your guest is like a huge thing. And like having that conversation with them beforehand and like getting on the same page of like, what is your intention with coming on? Like, what do you want out of this? And then that gives you a good like way to like govern your interview, because you already know what their intention is. So it's like, if this guy wants to come on and talk about music and I'm talking about him being sober, it's like, are we really on the same page? It's like, well, it's almost disrespectful to the guest. And not only that, like knowing specific facts and knowing like history that you can easily find on the internet. It's like that breaks so many barriers in terms of like establishing that level of like respect and comfort with the guest when you start like dropping certain things. And then they're like, the amount of like internal respect that you can tell where like their body language changes, they get more comfortable, they relax. Like it's these little wins that make for such a good interview. And all it takes is just like, you know, few hours researching your guest, right? But it shows that you respect them, right?
Yeah. So you prioritize the guest so that they can discover more of themselves. There's little bits and fragments inside that just needs a little bit of reflection for it to bubble up in the surface. And then they get to realize that, oh, like I didn't know my passion runs that deeper. I didn't know it connected to my childhood like that. And not only that, their stories inspire other people who are listening. And so if you project to the future, you can, you know, maybe hypothesize, maybe that at least one person will be listening to this episode and maybe be a little bit more brave about their condition, whether it be epilepsy, whether it be about their shame, or whether it be growing up and they were surrounded by people who didn't love them as much, but they did their best. And, you know.
And then the thing is, it's not that you're trying to get that every second of the interview, but if you can achieve that once, like I remember I interviewed, his name's Jeremy McPherson. He was a coworker of mine, still is. And he went through like a big weight loss journey and a sobriety journey. And there was like one moment where I was like, there's the value. Now, out of 100 points that there was value, but I asked him like, so what did you do to like help with your sobriety? And he said, I never went to AA because like I didn't think it was for me, but I used this app called My Sobriety Buddy. And it was like, well, there it is. Like if there's anything you could take away, who knows, someone might be looking at that and saying, yeah, I have a little bit of like social anxiety, like going to AA. Like, I don't know if like I'm there yet, but maybe I'll check out this My Sobriety Buddy. Right.
Yeah.
And if they download the app, then that's a win.
That's a win.
Right.
And you get to discover this person that you've had. Maybe you guys have been working for
and
how
you
many
just didn't know.
You just didn't know. I've had friends sit in that chair and I asked them like certain questions that I wouldn't normally, because usually like we wouldn't have time to go in depth, or it would be in a group setting, and usually our dynamic's more comedic. It's more shooting the shit.
It's not like appropriate to like ask these type of questions.
Yeah, it's like I'm not gonna ask you, and I got in front of like 6 other people. You know, what's the greatest lesson you've learned out of the trauma that you endured as a kid? Talking about that story, right? It just doesn't apply. But then when you actually talk to someone for an hour, you get this. You can't hide things, right? You can't script this,
and you can see through it very quickly. Of like, oh, this person doesn't want to be here. Like, and now there's like a nuance to that, because you say, do they not want to be here because I'm not asking the right questions? Like, what is causing this type of anxiety that they're having? Because it honestly, like, I always tell the guest, like, it's up to me on whether or not you're a good guest. Like, it's not up to you. Like, because if I ask you the questions that make you feel the most comfortable and that you're going to want to talk, you agreed to come on to talk about something. So if I can't capture that, then like, whose fault is it? Like, now, if there have been interviews where I have sent them the questions, they come on, and then all of a sudden they don't want to answer the questions. And then you're like, well, where do we go from here? And there's no harm, no foul. You send them away. You tell them, hey, I'm not going to put out this episode, but you're more than welcome to come back with like a new set of questions that are like mutually agreed upon. And that's kind of like where we handle it, right? Like but it's one of those things of like, you kind of have to know, like, the ball's in my court. Like, I have to take control of this event. I have to take control of this situation here. And like, if I relinquish too much control of the guest, then I can't get that back, right? So like, especially when it gets into like tough topics or like asking them certain like advice or insight, it's like, well, I have to like set that up for them. I call it like I'm tossing them like alley oops, right? Like I'm giving them like the perfect pass to score the bucket. But if I give you a bad pass, your performance is going to be bad because I didn't set you up to succeed, right? So again, it comes down to like knowing your guest, knowing what are they coming on for, and how can I like drive that narrative. And sometimes like someone will come on and you'll tell them like, hey, well, we have to touch this topic, and they're like, no, and you're like, well, we can't have this conversation because it's not like I'm going to ruin my credibility, or it's not going to be authentic, because like this is what people know you for. Like say if it's a if it's some controversy, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I don't want to talk about the first thing that shows up when I Google your name. It's like, well, then I'm not doing my due diligence, because anybody else to Google your name, like, why didn't that come up in the conversation?
Yeah, you want to be able to do your best to uplift them and give them a space to talk about what's important to them. And yes, you ask tough questions, but at the end of the day, if they don't want to answer it, then you're going to respect that, right?
Yeah,
but
of course. But that comes down to the fact where you just need to know, okay, is this like on brand for me? Like, am I, because some people that have asked to come on, and like, I'm an open door. Like I always tell guests, and I always tell everybody I talk to, like, if you can conceptualize like an hour's worth of conversation, I have no problem interviewing anybody. But it's the people that ask to come on, and then you say, well, what are we going to talk about? And then they go, I don't know. It's like, well, that's really difficult for me, because it's like, I don't want to lead you in the wrong direction, and then we get stonewalled somewhere. And then it's like, well, how do we dig ourselves back out into like a neutral, like talking area? Because people don't understand like the dynamics of like what makes like an engaging conversation. And like, once the wheels start to fall off, you're like, well, where do we go from here? And at this point, the audience have already stopped listening 10 minutes prior to the wheels falling off. Right?
It's funny that you say that. Oh, what are we supposed to talk about? A lot of people say that when I ask them to come on the show, and I ask them, hey, what are you passionate about? A lot of them say, oh, maybe coffee, maybe weightlifting, maybe it's books. There we go. Those are each topic 20 minutes we can talk about, because that's something you spend time on. That's something that it makes you. And then maybe if you relate it back to who you are as a person. So these books, you've told me about your anxiety back in the past. Now, has the books helped that kind of stuff?
Right.
And I feel like there's so much value in each person and their conversation, right? Like who they are. There's this entire world internally. I feel like people don't give themselves enough credit.
and I don't think they have enough opportunities for long form. I think the idea that people have long form conversations, like I can't tell you about a time, unless it was guys that I was doing podcasts with, like Joey or Rich, and I was having conversations with them about like the business of podcasting. I can't tell you about a time that I sat down outside of a camera and had like a long form discussion, because things are so quick. And where you say I'm sitting having a beer with someone, or I'm at a coffee, well, like there's so many distractions where they have their phone, there's people coming around, they're ordering food, they're doing whatever, right? So it's almost one of those things where like us in a society now, like the opportunity to have these like in-depth conversations. So like some people honestly don't think they have an hour's worth of things to talk, right? Because their value has been so diminished to like a 5-minute window, where it's like they don't know what they like and what they don't like.
They can't dig deeper, right? They don't get a chance, because I feel like the answers that I have, it's already all in there, but it gets discovered through long form conversation. Like when I'm talking to a loved one for hours, right? Or like even the podcasting, it's like, oh, I didn't know you saw that in me, and I didn't know that was in me.
And it's interesting too, because I was never the type of person that would almost give people the time of day. Like when it came to like my workplace, it was like, I like I was just in my own lane, doing my own thing, like, and I never really gave the opportunity to like lend an ear. And then once I started podcasting, like it very like humbly, like kind of shot to the heart, right? Where it's like, have I been treating people like this for a long time? Like, and it made me like, it gave me real world benefits outside of like what we see with the podcast growth, where like I can tell when someone like is kind of bringing something up where like they're throwing you like the lifeline and being like, just ask me, ask me.
I want to talk about my day. I want to talk about my life.
Or it's DJing, or it's like something to do with finance, or it's something to do with religion.
At the end of the day, podcast aside, it's the conversation. People just want to feel connected. People just want to feel recognized that they are real, that they're someone in this world that has lived. There's someone that, is making an impact, something positive, something where, that maybe their trauma, their suffering, their toast in the morning has something to do with who they are. And there's other people, they care about that and they want to listen.
And there's subtle cues that you kind of can pick up on when people like, they're not mentioning it just to mention it. Like they're mentioning it in hopes that someone like asks them like in detail, like, tell me about this. Right. So, but that kind of gave me the realization, like, I can't be like the deciding factor of like who is worth talking to and who's not worth talking to. And I used to like think that way of, oh, like, I don't really give a shit about like what you got going on. It's like, it ain't really worth like talking, but like sometimes you can learn something is the big thing. And other times, like, you can give that type of empathy or like that type of like mutual respect of like, well, maybe you're going to tell me something that I'm going to like learn today. And I need to be willing to like accept that and not be like, I used to be really like rigid and abrasive and just be like, yo, don't even waste your breath. Like, don't even waste your breath. I don't want to hear it. I don't like, and I found like a lot of times, like it was like simple things of like, people would say like, how you doing today? And I just good. And I never have like and they ask me like, well, why didn't you ask me how my day was? Well, I don't care how your day is going. So like, why would I bother asking you and wasting your time and telling me if I didn't care? And that was my mentality, right? Where now I have to consciously say, oh, don't forget to ask them as well how their day's going. Cause that's just not how my brain worked. I just didn't. And I caught myself all the time being like, oh, how you doing today? I'm doing good. And I just go on with my thing and they're like, what? And you're just like, oh, like I never thought to ask you because I don't care. Like, you know?
Yeah. I think every single person has something that they're good at. Yeah, I don't believe that anyone is lazy because they're spending time on something.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of laziness, but a matter of time prioritization. Because you have a person that's deemed lazy by society and all they do is play video games. They may be the best about video games. Maybe they're really good at analyzing movies. Maybe they're really good at gardening. Who knows?
And in their realm, they're very acclaimed.
In their realm, like they're in the top dogs.
Yeah, like people see them and go like that. Like even like powerlifting, like it's like some people go like, oh, that person looks overweight.
Yeah.
And then you talk to people around them and they're like no, that dude's a beast.
That
like,
guy's a beast. Yeah. Yeah. He's recognized all around.
It's very interesting because on the outside looking in, you're like, oh, that dude ain't shit. But it's like in his world, he's like a superhero.
It's crazy. Yeah. Cause like maybe in academia, like I'm not as good, but like maybe in the event planning, podcasting realm, I'm like up there, like the workout realm.
And
right?
interviewing.
Yeah.
And I think for you, it's like sheer like willingness to do it. Like, especially when you're doing like the public interviews and stuff, like it takes a level of like getting out of your own way. And like, I don't think that's a skill that many people have, or like they worry too much about the attributing factors where it's like, you've kind of managed this, like getting out of your own way where it's like, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to worry. Cause some of the things like I watch some of the interviews and I'm like, man, like I would love to do that, but I'm so worried about how I would be perceived or if I would be like like for me, it'd be like, am I like breaking any rules? Am I like ruining this person's day? Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it, on the surface level, it ain't as like crazy as you think it is. And like you get out of your own way, and then it's like if it becomes a problem, you just address it.
Yeah.
Right.
Bro, I have the same thoughts in my head, man. Don't like a lot of people seem to think I don't have any social anxiety, but I'm just like all of you guys. I'm just all of the people that ask me, oh, how can you just do that challenge where you just talk on the bus or you interview people out in the streets, people are watching? I'm like, I don't know. At first it was really difficult, but then over time it just gets easier. Like, this for podcasting too. Like at the start, there's all these things that you didn't understand about the audio, about video, about selecting guests, communication. But then here you are, like a couple years later.
Yeah.
And then you already have a system.
Yeah.
And like how do you get to that? And like, if you had told yourself the first day that you're going to be on this many episodes, right? Over 100 now for you, right? And you're just going to be shocked. Like, what? I've gone that far? But then, every day was something that you did it out of passion, and then you did it every day. Now, like, how does your law enforcement and psychology background influence your interview preparation style?
So I think it gives me a more like willingness to reach out to people I don't know. Because in my workplace, it's like I'm talking to people that I've met the first time that day, that interaction. And usually it's not like the best. Usually it's because someone had their rights taken away, or they're not getting their medication, or they think they're like unlawfully detained, or whatever it is, right? And using like that conflict management and like getting on the same page and like understanding what like the roles are, and just using that like crisis like management type thing of like, you're just, the big thing you learn in law enforcement is like, I can easily like bring this guy's emotions down, or if I want to, I can drive them right back up, bring them right back down. And it's all how you say it, what your tone of voice is. But it gives me a level of like comfortability with not being like worried or intimidated by anybody. Like, it's like, because the idea that it's like, even if I had a guest on and they were like wilding out, it's like, you're not even close to like the worst stranger that I've met.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't have to, like, that's a barrier that I don't have to really cross.
Yeah, you're calm about it.
And I'm naturally like an optimistic person, right? So like, I'm going to take someone for face value. Like, until you give me a reason to like think you're a sketchy person, I'm going to just treat you like a normal. Same with people that are like incarcerated. It's like, it's not my job to like judge you on like what you're here for. Like, that's not my role. Like, my role is to make sure that like you're safe, you have your meds, your food, you make it to court. Like, that's it. Like, and there's a level of separation between that, right? Where even like, say I get like corrected and I'm interviewing a guest and the guest corrects me. It's like, I have to understand that like, they're not correcting me because like they're trying to be an asshole. Like, they're correcting me because like they're trying to get their story straight, and this might be the first time that they've had an interview, or like naturally they just like, that's just who they are, and I need to accept that, right? And when it comes to that, like, I have a very good interpersonal, like a good relationship with like interpersonal skills, and like understanding like, am I saying something that like is making this person like offish? Like, are they making eye contact with me? Are they like checking their phone? Are they doing like certain like, behavioral mechanics? Are they sitting and they're away from me? Are they like, things like that, where you can start to register, because these are all key factors in my workplace that you can tell if something's about to happen. Oh, is a guy walking around with his fist clenched? Oh, well, he might be about to punch someone. Is like, what type of shoes is he wearing? How is he wearing like his coveralls? How is he, little things like that, little body mechanic things, but as well as like, when I ask him questions, like, how is he answering my questions? So then I can tell whether or not I need to like reroute, or like, am I saying something that might be like a little off-putting, right? When it comes to psychology, just like, I'm like fascinated when it comes to like behavioral psychology and like the body mechanics of everything, but also getting into like every time I have someone on, I always like to ask them like, what, like, what was your like thought process when it comes to like your ego and your self-esteem and like how you're viewing yourself in these, like, what did you think other people thought of you? Right. Because I find that such an interesting topic of like introspectiveness and how much like self-talk someone has, because I think that's like a very like nuanced thing. But I also like it. It's a good like springboard because you start asking them about that and then they start actively doing it and it brings out more value in their other questions, right? Like even when I'm talking to like incarcerated people, a lot of times I ask them the same thing, like, well, how would you feel if like someone else was doing this to you? Like you're extending your time out on exercise, but like we're on a rotation. So you, if you take more time, then there's less time this guy gets. So like kind of a shitty thing to do, right? And they're like, oh well, well no, like let's call it what it is, right? So you're able to use this like level of introspectiveness to say, just like think about it, how you're behaving and how you're like outwardly presenting, and then you can decide whether or not that's a right choice for you.
I
Right.
love that.
So
Yeah.
it's good. And a lot of times people leave and they're like, man, like that was really good. Like I really enjoyed that. Right.
So, what single psychological principle do you find most useful when moderating a debate or building rapport with a guest?
Body mechanics. So I think like when it comes to body mechanics, you can tell a lot where like someone's at. And I think you can easily tell if the questions that you're asking are okay, but you can see like facial expression, you can see like where their eyes are, you can see like, say if someone's more like self-conscious, you'll see them looking at the cameras all the time and seeing like where are the cameras at. Maybe it's their voice, maybe it's but you can do that in a way and like you can just read into it to know like, okay, am I doing this right? And is it something that I'm going to be able to control? Sometimes when it comes to like people being like self-conscious or nervous, it's like, that's okay. Like people are allowed to be nervous. Like it's not, like a bad thing. And if you can kind of bring them through that journey, usually it like wears away over time, but definitely just like watching the body, like seeing where people are, like if they're shifting their position a lot, if they're like constantly like looking at the watch, it's like you can tell that the time that you've had with them is starting to come to an end because like they're losing their patience. So maybe it's you're not asking them questions that are engaging for them. So they're like, oh, I want to get out of here, right? Maybe it's the room's too hot. Maybe it's they don't like where the camera is, like, but just watching their body, seeing what they're doing is like a big thing, right? Once they start talking with their hands, it's like, okay, now you got them going. They're animating with their hands. Is the actions that they're talking about in sync with what they're actually doing? It's like, okay, I'm getting a legitimate story because like your body can't fake that, right? Like if they're telling a story and they're like, I was chopping down a tree and I went chop, chop, chop. It's like, okay, well, they're like their experience that they had with that is in sync with what they're actually talking about. But if they're doing it and it's not in sync, then like, okay, this might not be true. Because like now their body can't recreate the experience that they had. But this is like, a lot of this is just like out of like passion of like me being really interested in this. Like I've taken psychology courses and I'm still getting my psychology degree. But a lot of this is just like sheer like interest of like, I'll watch like police interrogations or like, and then a guy on YouTube will like break it down and say like, look at how this like dude's doing this. Like we can tell that he's lying, or we can tell that he like he didn't mean what he actually said, or like the person's uncomfortable. And these are like tactics that people use. Like even the way like my set is set up, like you want to keep the guest closest to the door because it makes them feel safe. But if I have them on the other side, it's like I'm closing them in and they feel like interrogated. You don't want to have bare walls. You want to have something that, but if I was trying to get something out of them and like stretch their like like make them simmer a bit, I would have all of the walls bare, because you don't want anything to like divert their attention, right? But it's like I want them to be creative. I want them to have an imagination. So I want to keep lots of things up. So if they get anxious or nervous, they can like look at different things and stay grounded and not have to like, you know, but little things like that, that using like psychology principles, that you can like keeping the chairs open and not directly facing each other. A, it's for the cameras, and B, it's so they don't feel like they're being interrogated, right? Little things like that. So like the way we have these chairs set up, it's easier to have a conversation like this. But if we were like looking eye to eye, it's definitely more nerve-wracking for some people, because now you can't like you can't avert your like your eyesight is directly on them, like you're beelining them, right? So little things like that, having water, having drinks, offering them something, using like this level of like gaining comfort, like I'm trying to establish trust. So like, you know, doing those things, and yeah, and like learning throughout that of like what is the best way. And it's always guest forward. It's always, what can I bring that's like beneficial to the guest, and how can I bring the best out in them, right? And how can I make sure that the conversation that they're having today is like in a safe space, and like I'm not trying to play any like trickery. I'm not trying to like clickbait them. I'm not trying to like get something out of them that they didn't want to tell. Cause like, I'm not trying to like force their hand. And some people feel that like, oh, you're going to get me in here, I'm going to like lower my guards, and then you're going to like ask me something like crazy, like tell me about your stepbrother or something. And then they're like, whoa. Right. And a lot of times that's happened to people, and you have to kind of know that it's like, some people are wary of it because of their past experiences. So I need to be like graceful, and I need to make sure like everything like is at a point of like mutual respect. Like I go through all the questions with them. Like, is this okay? You ready to go? Any questions? If you have any, just be sure to like let me know after the interview, right? Like little things like that, that they're like, okay, I'm safe. This guy's not here to harm me. This guy's not here. And we're only talking. I'm not wrestling them. I'm not taking them through a jiu-jitsu lesson, but how quickly like conversations like that are recorded, like people need to like establish that, like, what are your intentions with having this conversation? And like, what are you trying to do with this? Because like this can easily make me look bad if you like chop this up and do certain things with it. Then all of a sudden it's on the internet forever, and I have no control over it.
Yeah. With understanding a guest's body language, like how has your like studying psychology changed your understanding of like mental health narratives shared by your guests? So like with first responders, athletes, just
definitely understanding terminology, understanding like different resources, as well as understanding like there's a way to approach it. There's a type of vocabulary. There's a type of way to discuss it without sounding too crass, or without sounding like you're biased in any way, right? I think that's a big thing, is understanding like what your tone is as a host, because the way you deliver something might imply that you agree or disagree with it, right? Especially when people are talking about self-harm, and you have to know that like, okay, this might need like a 5-second like still air, because like you don't want to quickly come in and then him be like, oh, so you don't really think that's important, like you don't think that's a big deal, okay, cool, moving on, right? Allowing that space for people. But it's a big thing of just understanding the type of ways to deliver, and how to like not like spin through it, right? And like, say someone's getting emotional, like letting them get emotional for a second, not to capture that moment, but to show them it's a safe space for them to do that. And if they ask you afterwards, like, I wouldn't really like that out, or can we cut that? Absolutely. But making it known that like, this is for you, like this is your story, and if you feel like you're going to get emotional, like I have no problem like sitting in that room with you and like feeling those emotions, whereas it's about the human connection. Like cameras aside, like I always tell my guests, like cameras aside, podcast aside, like I'm internally, like I'm like grateful to be like sharing this space with you and having this conversation outside of everything, right? Like even if I wasn't doing this and I had the opportunity to talk with you for an hour, I would love to do that, right? And it kind of allows me to like understand it more, right? And understanding like where people are at. And I think the more that I'm learning about psychology and human behavior and my experience in my workplace, I think it's giving me more attuneness. I'm becoming more attuned to like understanding when people are vulnerable, when people are like boisterous, when you need to give people like positive affirmations, or when you need to like not ask additional questions, right? But yeah, I think it's just now it's like fine tuning, right? I'm not perfect. I'm never going to ask perfect questions, but I think every interview I have, I learn, I get a little breadcrumb every interview to figure out like, oh, I think I like rushed through this too fast. And like, this wasn't, I don't think the guest noticed, but I think that like I could have done a better job, and or like I made like a funny comment. Maybe that wasn't appropriate, right? Things like that. But yeah, I think the more training I can get, the more interviews and experience I get, the better I'm going to be at reading that. But that's probably been like the biggest thing of just knowing like your tone and knowing like what type of Ryan Macdougall do I need to bring to this interview? Do I need to bring the fun, upbeat, shooting the shit Ryan, or do I need to bring like the calm, somber, like relaxed Ryan?
Yeah. I really appreciate your level of empathy towards other people and your ability to make them comfortable, and your philosophy of assume innocent until proven guilty, because there's definitely a lot of assume guilty until proven innocent, and it seems like you just take people for who they are and you see the good in them, and you want to be able to extract the good in them and share it with the world and have them feel better about themselves and make it comfortable for everyone. And it's really beautiful, man. And
Thanks.
I think you're doing a great job. Now, how do you intentionally use active listening or other psychological cues to ensure guests sharing difficult stories feel heard?
So one thing that I'm working on, which I have to say you do a really good job of, is doing like active paraphrasing, right? Summarizing the discussion that you're having, right? That's something where I tend to do a different thing where it almost gets me in trouble, because it almost takes away from what they're talking about. Is I like to use like personal analogies of like, oh, I've experienced something similar. But it's like you're walking on a tightrope of like, it's the sliding scale of like, it can be good if it's quick, and but you can easily take the momentum away from their story by using something personal. So you have to strategically place that to know like, is this actually valuable, and am I doing this to like further connect with someone? But I think the active listening skill I'm working on, it's more of the proving to the guest that I heard what they said. And that's still a skill that I'm probably behind on, because at the start, I was listening to talk, not listening to understand. So I was just waiting them to finish talking so I could continue talking. And that was like my mentality behind it, of like, I just have so many questions to ask that like, I'm not even hearing you. I'm like waiting for you to stop. Oh, okay, cool. And so talking about this, blah, 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 blah. But then you kind of have to slow down and read into it. And I'm starting to become more attuned to that of like, okay, just relax. Or like stacking questions, right? Like that's a big thing that I have problems with even to this day, is like asking more than one question in a sentence. So they're like, are you even hearing what I'm saying? Because you're asking me like 5 questions at once, right? But I truly am listening, but I think the afterthought of it, or I get ahead of myself in what I'm actually trying to do. But yeah, using like personal analogies or antidotes, paraphrasing, giving like subtle cues of like saying like, right? Yeah, of course. Right? Like little things like that you're showing them like, oh, I'm there, right? Or even saying like that must have been difficult.
But personal stories work out. It's just an affirmation that, oh, I see where you're coming from. I'm going to try to relate it to my own story and we can connect that way.
Yeah.
I also do that, but like, I think paraphrasing for me is like, I just want to be able to understand where they're coming from. And then if it's deemed necessary, I'll also add a personal anecdote or something that, you know, can add to it. But sometimes I miss it though. And I'm like, wait, this has nothing to do with what they're talking about.
And then you have to decide like, yeah, maybe I would say, and I always put myself and I say, if I was talking to this person over drinks, is this a question for drinks or is this a question for the podcast? Because there's two different dynamics there of like, well, whereas if we're there having a coffee, having dinner, whatever it is, well, that's like a 50-50 space of like, it's just as much my attention that I deserve as just as much your attention. But in the podcast element, it's like you only get 15 to 20% and the rest needs to be the guest, right? So using these like personal analogies, it's like, well, what value does it add? And sometimes I have it in my head if I'm going to say this, and the more the guest talks, I go, yeah, I lost my opportunity to say that. Or now it's not really relevant because now I'm like almost bringing them back just to give them my personal analogy. And it's like, for what? Like, but it can work. Like a lot of times, especially when you talk about very like vulnerable things, it can enhance the conversation because then they say, oh, this person understands. Yeah. Right.
I think with the conversation, it's just like a dance. It's like you have to like follow a set of rules and there's a pattern and you do this step and then that step, but the person also has to dance with you and you guys have to move in a rhythm.
Yeah.
And you can go back to a dance move and have it work still. And that depends on who you're dancing with.
Yeah, it's just as much responsibility of the guest to be a guest and answer the questions as it is for the host to ask the question.
It's both ways.
Yeah, there's a responsibility on both ends. Like you've came on for a reason. So like you have to understand, like, you know what's going to happen. Like a brief was sent to you, questions were given to you. So you know what's going to happen. Like we didn't script the answers, but you understand that like there are things that I'm going to ask. So if you didn't do the preparation and think, oh, how would I actually answer this? Or like, what is a good story or experience that I had that I would be able to like use, right? And then even if you have a couple, right? But that's one of those things where as a host, you need to relinquish that responsibility of like, sometimes a guest like just didn't come with it, but like, you just need to do your best. And if you did your best, then it is what it is. There's some tidbit of value in there. You just might have not got the best out of them, but there still was a good interview. Like even my quote unquote worst interviews were still good interviews that provided value. I just didn't do enough to give that person a level of comfortability or like openness where it's like there were a lot of things they were holding back where you were like, okay, well, maybe the next interview and maybe it's out of pride. Maybe it's out of, they don't think I would understand. And maybe I didn't. Right. And it's one of those things where like, you didn't like connect the dots well enough, but you got something, you got a story, you got like some personal journeys, you got some insight, some advice. You just, you access them at the 50% of their potential and something stopped them from giving you full disclosure.
Yeah, I think there's still beauty, even if it's a conversation that maybe you weren't fully present, or maybe you didn't ask the right questions. But there's no rules in conversation. Yes, you need to be able to be respectful, and you need to make sure you treat them with kindness. But if they didn't get up and storm out, you're doing a good job.
And sometimes too, like it's my own fault. Like I'll have a guest that has like a certain level of influence and I'll be like frazzled. Because I'm like, oh, I don't want to mess it up for them. I don't want to like, and sometimes the power dynamic is so different where you're like, I'm down here and this guy's up here. Yeah. This guy is literally sticking his neck out for me. So like, I have to come correct. Yeah. Right. And it's this weird thing of like, maybe they think you're doing them a benefit and this is like good like this is good
What
publicity for them.
Yeah. What I've realized is you should never pedestalize people, no matter how big they are. Because as soon as there's a power dynamic, in which there is in every single interaction, it's not, it doesn't become genuine.
No,
it's tough to be able to gauge that and to have like no.
And you don't want to look
dynamic.
like you're glazing someone, or you don't want to look like you're kissing their ass, or you're simply having them on because of their influence. Because that's when it starts to get dangerous, and it looks like you're like idolizing people, and you're not asking, and then you're dodging certain questions, or you're not asking them certain. And those are the ones that are the most scrutinized.
Like, this is just another human being wanting to have a conversation, right? You shouldn't be able to like place them in such a high value that their word is more right than the other person. Because I feel from having all these conversations, from listening to the top dogs, like Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, Chris Williamson with Modern Wisdom, I find that the level of conversation that we have right now, like, yes, we don't have as much exposure because the world's not listening, right? It's just Edmonton. But it's still valuable. It's still like, I still find like it's still very similar. Like, I know, like it'd be great to have, like the Hermosi or like the Prime Minister on there, but
Jocko Willink.
But I feel like we're very similar. I think we're human, and I feel like the moment I kind of reflect on that and I meditate on that, I'm like, yes, these are phenomenal people. These are people that have amassed millions of followers. But at the end of the day, they're human, just like us. And yes, maybe they're a lot more successful, but I'm not going to pedestalize them.
Yeah. And the thing is too, what I find interesting is, and especially getting into like a mentorship phase of like my podcasting journey, is like understanding that you don't want to skip any steps. Like, say there's a guest, say like Morgan Whalen was here for an event. Out of nowhere, I just DM'd the guy. Obviously, he didn't respond, not even know, nothing. But I kind of thought in my head, would I be able to, at this level that I'm at now, do I have the level of experience, the level of like production value to facilitate an interview of that caliber? Or is it going to take another 200 interviews to be ready for something like that?
Honestly, I think you do.
And I appreciate that.
I think you do.
But there's something to be said about like not skipping those steps and saying it's okay that someone like that wouldn't want to come on, because when they do want to come on, I'll be at the level where I can facilitate it.
I think over a long enough time frame, as Hormozy would say, you get what you deserve. Like, if you just keep on going, don't stop. Because like with podcasting, man, there's so much self-doubt, right?
And you create undeniable proof that you're supposed to be here, right?
Yeah, you are who you say you are.
And sometimes it takes like vetting. Sometimes it takes like you having a guest on, and that guest reaching out to the person that you want to get on.
It may take 5 years, 10 years. Like like the way I see this is, I'm going to be doing this till I'm 40, till I'm 50. You know what I mean? This is something that I enjoy. This is something that, when things get tough, like, I'm still going to be doing this.
And the things that you learn from it, even outside of it, like say if 5 years from now, you're kind of still like at the level you're at, or you're whatever, it's like the level of education, the level of human connection that you get, it's like none of it doesn't bring value.
You will never forget about this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like for a lot of people, this is their first podcast.
Yeah.
How many people can say that have been on the podcast? Oh, and who was it? Ryan Macdougall, this guy.
Yeah.
No? And then a lot of them will show let's say this is the last episode that you and I do.
Right.
Last episode. 30 years later, you're just in a random conversation. Hey man, what were you like in your 20s, 30s? No, I was actually, I have a podcast. I have a podcast here, back 30 years ago. Show it to your kids, show it to your grandkids, or 100 years later. We've
like people are still watching episodes that I recorded 7-8 months ago.
Yeah. It's like, whoa, that was an entirely different Ryan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's crazy. And people are saying like, oh, I really loved it. And you're like, wow. And you're like, looking back at it, I'm thinking about where I was at. And it's just, I think it's so great for like human growth and like this like emotional awareness. And like, I don't think people consume enough of it. And I also don't think but at some point it can get like almost to a point of like mania, where like people have to understand like, okay, it can only take you so far. Like Chris Williams says, like there's like
Mhm.
the only thing that's doing the thing is doing the thing. So it's like you have to actually like commit yourself to something, because talking about it is not doing it, right? So it's great if you have someone on and they're like super motivational, but that also needs to be like vetted and grounded in something of like,
Mm.
what are the facts behind this of like what you're saying? And like, how do we actually like bring this back to earth? Cause like all of this is just like hot air, right? How do we actually say like, okay, yeah, I'm able to say this and this is what brings it credibility, right?
Yeah, you need to add utility. Like, what can I do with this information that'll actually make my life better? Or is it just, thought masturbation? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm thinking all deep, but like it
Yeah.
actually doesn't extrapolate
Or the
towards
person
your
that
real
you
life.
have on really doesn't do anything, but they're just a good talker. And you're
Yeah.
like, well, is this giving me any value? Because like
Yeah.
knowing what I know, and as well, am I leading my viewers down like this dangerous path of like, this guy is like, a habitual gambling addict and he's talking about like finances.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's not really, I
course.
need to find out where like the realm is and how I can kind of connect these dots of like, well, where's the value? How do I attribute what this person's saying to like the value that he's already provided, right?
The long-term people.
Yeah, exactly.
So what is your process for quickly identifying the guest's most important turning point or core narrative for an interview?
So usually like I follow all of my interviews like a bell curve. You have like your build up, like your introduction, your build up. Then you have like, well, where was the conflict? Was it losing a job? Was it an injury? Was it getting sober? Was it losing a family member? Whatever it is. And then conflict, and then resolution, and then end, right? Usually that's how every personal journey starts, especially when you see like a big life transition. A lot of it, unfortunately, is through like trauma or needing for change or filling a void. But there's always that like internal conflict where like they're getting pulled in two directions. And that's kind of, and then through that, you have insights, right? This is what I learned from this internal conflict. So you have like your build up story. I'm building the hero. Like, tell me about who you are. How were you as a child? Like, what was your like growing up look like? What are some of the choices you made? Okay, maybe you had this internal conflict when you were 20. Maybe you had it when you were 40. Maybe you had it when you were 30. And then you get into like this total switch. And out of that resolution, what were some things that you learned that you would deem valuable for other people to learn? Maybe it's just getting in a new career. Okay, I transitioned from working law enforcement to real estate. Well, what did you learn from that? Like, and not just specifically real estate, but like, what did you learn about like transitioning from a job? Maybe it's like not quit one job before you've been established in another. Maybe it's like the emotional like regulation of like, don't get too excited because like this might not work out and I'll have to go back to my original job or whatever the case may be. But then you have to find out like, well, where am I like pinpointing these insights? But that's the template of like the hero's journey, conflict, figuring out the resolution, and then the insights from that resolution, right? And that's kind of how everybody's journey looks. And then you just start to take that person and you narrate it like that. Okay, so we had here. Okay, so like what did you learn from that? And like how did that look for you? How did you deal with this conflict? How did you like how did you feel inside? Like what emotionally, like how were you feeling? And out of that, people can then you're just starting to like really open up the book on them, right? Of saying like, oh, okay, so like you had a miscarriage. Like, talk to me about that, like what that was like having a business and having to take all this time off. Like, did you suffer like financially? Like, how was it emotionally? Did you find like people were patronizing towards you because like they really wanted you to feel better, but like it was almost just like digging that up again? And like, how'd you handle that? Right? Things like that. And I always try to bring it back to like this. How are you feeling? How are you feeling then? Like put me there. Like I always tell them, like, think of me as like the Google Maps guy. Like I want to take the Google Maps guy and like right into your brain. Like take me right back to that moment. How are you feeling? What were you wearing? What were you eating? What were you doing? And then through that, I can get like the realest, raw story. And by doing that, it like using like psychological tactics, like you're like placing them there. And some people can like, they say like, while they're talking about it, like, I'm getting goosebumps. Cause like they're literally putting themselves right back there. So those are some of the things that I use to like pull that story out in them. But it's, again, it's like this dance you're doing of like, well, where maybe it's the hero building thing of like, they identified something and then you're like quickly into like conflict resolution and sometimes it skips and goes back and, but usually the template is like, I'm trying to tell a story here, right? I'm trying to tell a story. The story starts from the beginning and we go through it chronologically, right? And if we can do that, and that's something that's easy for people to do. Like it's easy to recall like how you work chronologically. But if I start as like an adult and then say, why is that? Like, how'd you think about, it's like, it's hard for people to kind of go back and forth. So it's like, you start at the roots of everything. Like, how'd you grow up? What was your childhood like? And I tell people every time, like, this is what I'm going to ask because I think it's really important. Or like, say there's a specific moment that I was able to research of like, oh, at 16, you were gifted a guitar from your stepdad. And that's kind of what sprung you into music. Like, talk about how you were feeling there. Where like, what was that moment like? And that's like, okay, there's the creating the hero. So now from 0 to 16, it's not really relevant. It's like now we start at 16, but sometimes it's like as a kid, as a baby, as like I didn't get enough, like I was neglected as a kid or whatever. So their story starts at 5, right? So it's like understanding where they want to start that as well. Or like, is there a specific point? And then timing, right? Like you want to make sure you have enough time. So if you go into more of the nuance of things, once we get into the resolution and the insights, you're looking at the clock and you're like, oh, I have 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's definitely something that you have to have a read on and like be vetting in time of like, okay, like, did we already check this box? Okay, well, we can go to the next thing without them feeling like you don't care.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You want to be able to take them back to that present moment of like whether it be a traumatic story, like what they feel, how did they come out of it, and were they feeling lost, disconnected, or maybe a joyous memory of, what do you remember? Were the colors really bright? What was the color
and then
of your shirt?
affirming that emotion,
affirming that, and it's
saying
like, wow,
oh, that must have been really hard. Like talk about going through that, or like you must have been really excited.
That's beautiful,
right?
And that's beautiful to be able to, help people unravel these very, very heartfelt stories that make them who they are. And like some of these stories are the defining like point of who they are. It's so impactful to them.
And you're highlighting this on a public platform.
You can see it in their eyes. And we're incredibly blessed to have these people around us. And we get to know them for who they are, right? How many people in this world can actually hear these heartfelt stories, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people can really get to the point of comfortability, but here you are. There's certain guests that they let their guard down, like, mm-hmm. Oh, Ryan's a man that I can trust. He's mm-hmm. a man of person that that helps me unravel certain things that I didn't even know myself, and mm-hmm. maybe consolidate ideas that are positive and strong. Now, how do you balance your no BS approach with the ethical need to protect guests sharing vulnerable or sensitive stories?
I think it just comes down to like the preambles, before the interview, and understanding like how far do you want to take this, right? Because like I'll go as far into the deep end as you want, but it's with your like it's with your kind of blessing. So if they're like, yeah, I'd like to avoid this, well, you're already setting guardrails, and that's fine. But you kind of know, like, this is how deep I'm going. This is how shallow. Maybe we're only talking about professional. Maybe we're only talking about like, I'll give you an example. I had a guy on, he was like an AMA tow truck driver. And he basically, like, our whole conversation was surrounded around like roadside safety and what are some misconceptions. And we very briefly touched on like personal life and like his philosophies of staying single. But it was one of those things where you're kind of pushing, seeing how far you get, and then you're like, all right, because you can tell when they're answering the questions of like what their level of like, because they say, oh, and it's this and it's that, and they kind of like, it's like, well, you don't want to dive into that. Like if they wanted to discuss that, they would have, right? And we had this conversation beforehand, but it just came out through natural conversation. And then you're kind of like, I don't know how far this person wants me to take this. Like we've had this discussion about like profession and mentioning the job and this and that, but we never really had a conversation about that. But it's just watching your guest and kind of seeing like how they answering the question. Are they, and if they go into detail, then maybe you dive further. Maybe you say like, can we expand on that? And if they say, oh no, like I don't really want to talk about that, no problem, right? But at the same time too, like say if someone comes in and they have 7 different things they're doing, a lot of times I ask a question, how do you define what's like what's like a profession or like what's like a professional journey and what's a hobby? Because like I need you to define, like say you're a podcaster, a stand-up comic, a full-time student, a ayahuasca shaman, it's like, well, you can't do all that. And you can't do all that at like extremely high levels. So like I have to kind of ground it somewhere and say like, well, instead of saying like you're full of shit and you're not doing these all to like a professional level. So how are you identifying as every one of these when it simply can't be true? I have to say like, how do you define a hobby and a profession? So then it's putting them in that. And then through that, you can say, all right, like this person thinks as the moment they do it, that they're professional. All right, sure. All right, that's our reality. And that's fine. But it's something where you kind of have to hold people accountable as well. Or like say I have an artist on and I ask like, you've been an artist for X amount of years, like, but you're only putting out singles. Why haven't you put out an album yet? Oh, well, I don't have enough time. Well, is it about time? Or like, what's the other thing that you might be like, is it like level of production? Is it fear? Is it like you're worried about something? Like let's get into that, because like I see people that are artists for 6 months and they're putting out albums. Well, what's the difference between that? Like, are they not ready for it? Like, let's go into that, right? And you can almost challenge their opinion in like a graceful way without being like, that's not true, right? Or I have had a woman on and she was like in the circus and like I, like you want to ask questions, but you don't want to like come off as like you're like judging them in a way, right? But you want to get down to like the facts of it and go like, you don't need to lie to me. You don't need to lie to me. You can just, I'm gonna take whatever you say as like what it is. And I'm not going to say like, oh, I think that's stupid. I'm not here to really think about anything. I'm here to have a conversation and extract a level of wisdom from you. And if this is what you believe, then I will allow you to believe that, because like, it's not up for me. I'm just a human like you are. I can't, I don't work in the circus. So like, how am I supposed to know that like you're doing things that are 16 plus and they snuck in a 13-year-old and then said your act was vile? It's like, well, to me, I'd say, well, your kid shouldn't have been there in the first place. But it's like, do you take that level of like criticism and like, how do you deal with that? And then they say, oh, I don't take criticism from anybody. And you're like, well, maybe that's what you have to do to work in a circus. I have no idea.
At which point have you ever changed your mind when somebody was yelling at you or accusing you of lying, right? Never. But when somebody comes with you with compassion and understanding that, oh, maybe you exaggerated certain bits of the story, or maybe it's just the point of the definition. That's why you deem that to be the truth.
Right.
And if you come out of it, like come to it with compassion, people kind of let their guard down and they go, oh, maybe it was rooted in my insecurity.
Yeah.
Maybe it was something
Or
that
excitement, or people just get
Yeah,
excited.
yeah. And I didn't mean to lie. And then you kind of retract a little bit, because a lot of people, when they hear a lie and it's clearly a lie, people go, oh, I don't trust that person. But it's like, okay, but have you never lied in your life?
Right.
Like I've lied plenty of times.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be I just wanted to impress a girl, or
Or just
whether
a
it
white
be
lie to get out of
a
something.
white lie, you know, to a friend, or maybe there's like a deep lie, like
Yeah.
maybe cheating on an exam, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't believe I'm perfect, so why do I expect other people to be perfect?
Right.
I want that level of understanding
And I would
to me and to other people in my life.
Yeah. And I would never bring someone on for the basis of debate. And I think that's a big thing too, of like every opportunity that I had to bring someone on that I knew was going to be like confrontational, I just exclude, like I wouldn't do it, because that's not the type of energy. Like I don't want things to be rooted in like any sort of like divisiveness. Like I want to make sure that like we're coming in with the same, like I had one guy on, and I started to feel like that's what it was, because he was opposed to a lot of the guests that I've had on. And this was like political. And I started feeling like, oh, I'm getting like challenged a lot, or like I'm getting, and like it made me really like uncomfortable.
Kind of like interrupting you too.
And
Yeah.
not even that, like it was just kind of like he almost, you felt like he was there to like play devil's advocate, and it wasn't there to like talk about his journey.
He wasn't there to connect with you.
Right.
He was there to just challenge you, to have a battle.
Yeah, and I don't want to be the person to like, I want to make sure that like my knowledge of whatever it is like based on the expert, and not based on like maybe it's based on my research, but like I don't think I know enough about any specific topic. Like I don't want to be a Ben Shapiro. I don't want to be like some of these guys,
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, like that, where it's like it's rooted in like this like I want to be right. Like I'm okay relinquishing, like, oh, I thought this was it, but it wasn't. Oh, okay, well, good to know.
I'm
right?
comfortable being wrong. Like,
yeah,
I've probably said a million wrong things in the podcast, but I'm open to change my mind, and I'm open to improving, and I'm open to the fact that I am a flawed human being.
Yeah.
That I make mistakes. There's points where I'm insecure. There's points where I don't like myself, you know, but then there's also points where I feel joyous, and I feel thankful, and I'm blessed. And, you know, it's like all part of the human experience. And we can't shy away from the truth, because the truth of the matter is we all suffer from our own minds, from the way people treat us, the way we treat other people. And like we get wrangled into all these different spaces of what's the truth, that's a lie. But really, as long as you understand people for who they are, and if you understand yourself that you're not perfect, and that things go awry, it's okay.
And you just know that like it isn't that deep.
Not that deep.
It's not that deep. It's not that big of a deal. Like there are a lot of things going on, and like to know that like to be worried about so many external factors, like you're just doing a disservice to yourself, because you're like, it was funny. I was just listening to Ethan Hawke. He was interviewing with Joe Rogan, and he said like, yeah, would I look at like the critics of like movies and they say I bombed? He's like, but every high school party I went to, 50% of the people didn't like me. He's like, everybody that went to any party, but he's like, they're not doing that because of you. They're doing that because of themselves. It's an outward reflection of how they feel that they are.
Yeah.
And that's where people are getting it wrong. It's like, they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about them through you. And you have to understand that like, it isn't about you. Like people are going to criticize you because they're not where they want to be in a certain field. They're going to criticize you because they personally want to be right, and it's an ego thing, or they don't like you or whatever. And but it's okay. It's like, because for the same amount of people that are criticizing, you might get one or two people that are like, I really enjoyed it. And it's like, that's enough. But as long as you're comfortable with the things that you're doing and the moves that you're making, then it's okay. Because people inherently, humans have that feeling of like Does it feel gross? Then it's probably gross. Do you feel like you did someone dirty? Well, you probably did someone dirty. You get the gut feeling, your heart starts to sink. You feel like a physical reaction to doing something that you believe is morally wrong. So it's like, do you feel like you did something that was like off? Okay. I felt that in interviews where I answered a question or I asked something or I made a statement, and right away I was like, that was not the reaction I'm looking for. I feel like an idiot. And you're like, okay, well, like, there's my governor. And now I know, like, well, don't do that again. Right. But dealing with that criticism is like, if I feel like I was fine, I'll give you an example. I went to a Christmas party 2 days ago, and I got a little tipsy, whatever, but so was everybody else. But some of the people, like, they mentioned to my fiance, like, oh, good luck with them. And she kind of like felt the sort of way of like, oh, what do you say? Like, he drank too much, or he did, but it's like, maybe like I had an interaction with them, but it was like that type of criticism. But then I thought about it all day, and I was like, did I do something wrong? Did I not say? And then I was like, but I feel like I would have known that and my fiance came back from work and she's like, you didn't do anything wrong. Like, but the notion that like, good luck.
Yeah.
Like, what?
The little comment, you're like extrapolating things and you're looking at it, rooted it in your character.
And it's that easy, right?
And we suffer more in imagination than in reality.
Yeah.
Because like going back to your point of like that party that Ethan Hawke went to, and like 50% of the people didn't like him. It's rooted in them. And the moments where I feel like I don't like someone, like, are the unhealthiest times I've been.
Yeah.
And it's not a good feeling to not like someone. It's not like it hurts me. Like kind of when I look at someone and I feel disdain and I detest them, I kind of feel hurt, right? It's not a good feeling to carry around that grudge, the hate, and then going into it and trying to relate that, like, you're at that Christmas party and that good luck, right? And like you could look at these people and you could kind of see the bad, and you go, what do they mean by that?
Yeah.
What are they talking about?
I was
fine. But then they probably didn't mean much about it. But I'm the same way too, man.
Or it could have been a joke, right?
Yeah.
But the whole idea is like, if you had any like inkling of wanting to feel shitty about yourself,
you will.
They just open the door.
You will find a way.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, but I had a good time with my fiance. I had a good time with my coworkers. I had a little bit of to drink, and that's okay. It's end of the season.
Right.
But like, it's always finding the good.
And it's just interesting because I think
but it's hard.
And not like, even when you talk about like having feelings towards other people and like this level of detest, like you almost have to like relinquish this idea of like, I used to feel that way a lot. And then you started to say like, it's okay to like not want to be surrounded by someone, but like, I have to understand that like people are in different stages of life. I have to understand. So like, what I might hate about them, they might hate about me. And does that make it right? Like it's like, no, like you can just easily go separate ways, right? And like this idea where it's like, it's okay to like not vibe with someone, but that's a totally different thing than like hating someone, because then you're hating like a belief. And then it's like, oh, so I don't like him because he doesn't believe in this. So now, do I hate everybody that doesn't believe in this? Is that a sliding scale? Like, I was mad because someone made an excuse to not show up to my birthday party, but like 6 other people didn't show up and they had an excuse. Yeah. And I let those 6 other people off the hook, but I hated this guy for it.
You place so much value into him.
And I go, but I'm mad that he didn't show up. And now I'm making it about the excuse that he gave me. But if I was mad that he didn't show up, I gotta carry that same energy with everybody else that didn't show up, because like, why does he get all of the blame? Why? Because I think that he's a little corny. Why? Because I don't like the way that he does his, like, I don't like the way he interacts with his girlfriend and like how much time he decides to spend with his friends. Well, that's like a belief system. And it's like, well, maybe he just thinks different. Like maybe he just prioritizes family time more than I do. And is he right or wrong for that? No, but it's like how quickly I attribute the same action that everybody else did and all these other people. It's like, well, he has a family, he has this. It's like, well, so does this guy. And how do I choose what levels to believe? And it's like, but I don't give everybody else the same.
And yeah, it's hard to be able to just understand it, but everybody equally, right? Because there's just like biases.
And just saying, like, if I'm gonna chastise someone for not showing up, that blame, like, I need to treat everybody like that, and and if not, then it isn't really about him. It's because like I'm trying to find a way to like not like this person when really it's like about me. Like,
Fair enough.
There's something that I'm doing wrong, right?
Mm-hmm. How do you ensure debates and tough topics remain focused on the human experience rather than just abstract debates or ideas?
So a lot of that comes down to the type of conversations that I'm trying to have. Usually, if I'm having like a debate, it's probably on the conversationalist, and it's grounded in like comedic, like we're talking about what's the hardest championship to win, right? And usually through that debate, we kind of get to the same topic or the same answer. But when it comes to the one-on-one things, I tend to try to diffuse that. Like, that's not the energy. I don't think I have like the emotional like capacity, because like I start to get in my own head of like, oh, did I do this person a disservice? And a lot of times like it takes away like from that type of energy, where it's like I try to keep like the inspirational and like understanding, and like we're on the same journey together. But if we get into any sort of type of debate, I just kind of try to like revert back, and it's just not my like I'm not the type of person that like enjoys like challenging someone on a belief or now there might be a way that I approach it of like, well, talk to me about like this feeling, and like often this approach is counteracted by this approach. What do you think about that? But it's usually like letting them debate with themselves. And I kind of like stay on the outside of it, because like I just don't like that energy, like that type of energy where it's like, and where does that end? And it's like, if this happens in the middle of an interview and then I'm like going in back and forth, it's like, oh, now like I already have deemed that like I don't find this person credible, or like,
it divides us.
Yeah. And I just like, I usually go with the flow more than I like, even if someone goes like, something I know is factually true. Like, this person made a statement on social media and I like reference it during the interview, and he's like, I didn't say that. I'm like, all right, you didn't say it. Cause like, there's no point in me like arguing it.
But you did. No, I didn't, but you did.
Oh yeah. On this post, on this date, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, show me. And it's like, now we're getting so far off
Next
track.
thing you know, it's just dividing you.
Yeah.
And
it's better to just trust the guest at face value and say like, you haven't given me a reason not to like trust you. But like, it's honestly, will that always be the energy? Will I have like, I've wanted to do like debate roundtables during like the, I've had, just like you've had Andrew Knack on, and I talk about bike lanes and transit, but I reference a stat or a point, and I have them argue that. Instead of debating it, I say, according to this, blah, 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 what do you think about that? And based on your stance in this, like, what one is right? Using like grounding in stats or like when I interview podcasters, I always say like, do you know that like 91% of the Apple podcast directory is inactive podcasts? So like, do you feel like you have a responsibility to like you have more of a responsibility to handle criticism than you don't? Because ball don't lie, like all the podcasts are failing. So like, if people think you're a failing podcast, 91% of the time they're right. So things like that, where it's like you're grounding it in a stat and you're saying like, this is actually how it is. So how are you like changing your beliefs, or how are you handling that reality of it? Right. Yeah. And just things like that. Right. But that's a very small part, because I think it can ruin the energy in the room. And B, I think it screws with like the vibe, because then all of a sudden it's like, are we doing this? You know what I mean? Are we going there? and then to like bring it back like I'm putting them in the forefront. And I don't want to take that much of the energy. And I've had a lot of interviews where I felt like I've done that too much, and I've honestly felt like responsible for not sharing that person's story to like the fullest, because I was like, I did too much to try to like prove myself. I did too much to try to like show I was on this guy's level of understanding, where like that wasn't really what I needed to do. Right.
That's beautiful, man. It's I'm the same way. I don't want to argue with people. Like, yes, I do, but it's kind of letting them argue with themselves just to extrapolate like the
Where they're
truth,
at.
where
Yeah.
they're at. And then if they don't find a conclusion that fits my narrative, then that's okay. But they're still a human being with their biases. And why did they come to believe this? It's because of all the things that have happened in their lives. And if I was in their shoes, I'd be the same.
Yeah.
And like, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Ryan.
Yeah, this is amazing. I loved it.
It's like we'll
I
have
could talk
to,
for hours.
bro.
Yeah.
Do not stop, man.
Yeah.
Don't stop what you're doing.
No, you're the same.
With the spare bedroom podcast studio. It's amazing. I felt when I was there, have you interviewed me last month?
Yeah.
I was very comfortable, and you did a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
And you're continuously improving, and I see that with all the level of hard work and making it work with your law enforcement job and having a fiance and having a dog.
Yeah.
And still having time to come here.
Of course.
You're very capable person. Of course you're improving great, which is great, but like if you like stay the same right now, just know that you've made an impact in my life. And
thank you.
And if the podcast
Likewise.
stops right now, it's like you made a big impact, and probably not just my life, but many others out there. So keep being you, dude.
Yeah, you as well, man. I really enjoyed this experience. I'm really excited to see, like, I take all of these different things that you do, and I try to find like little things that I can kind of, use for myself and like learn from this. Right. And I really enjoy your style of interviewing, and I'm really I'm very inspired to see how you do things. It keeps me going, and I can't wait to collaborate further on other things. And like, I'm wishing you all the best, and you have full amount of support from me and anything that you need. I think a rising tide rises all boats, right? Yeah. I think that's a big thing. And the fact that you're quickly identifying with it, and you have this passion, and you're trying new things, and you're getting outside of the box, like that's so important. And like, it's an inspiration to everybody else that is dreaming of starting a podcast. And like, you got to start somewhere, right?
Somewhere.
You have to start somewhere, and like, you're doing great. And you're gonna accomplish. And it's this, again, it's like we talked about on my interview with you about like keeping things long term and understanding like it's a battle, like it's a aggregation of marginal gains. Like I'm not trying to make these huge 50% leaps. I'm trying to just do 1% every day, 1%. Yeah. And it's exciting, man. I'm so happy to do things like this. You let me know whenever you want me to come back. You are always welcome on my show, and we're going to make some great things.
Yeah, we'll have to do this at least once a year.
100%.
Over the 10-year period, we'll have 10 episodes that we can just look back and see the changes.
Absolutely.
But it's beautiful, man. I'm really thankful I met you. And there are people struggling out there. And like, to end off the show, I always ask the guests, like, do you have any words of encouragement for the people out there listening?
Yeah, you just gotta, things aren't that deep. Like, if you want to do something, you're going to find a way to do it. And, like, not everything's going to hit. Not everything's going to stick. You really just got to like know that it's this internal battle of, finding out yourself and finding out how you handle certain things. And the more you can figure out about yourself and be your own best friend, like, the better that you're able to do anything. But it's, it's just understanding that it is like a journey, and there are like ebbs and flows, right? And you have to handle it with grace, and you have to handle it with a level of self-awareness, and knowing, okay, is this my fault? Is this the system's fault? Is this something that I could control, something that I can't control? And just be willing to like accept that, and be willing to move forward and not let it like cripple you. That's the biggest thing is like, you just have to keep going. And the amount of times people don't get the desired outcome they want, and they just, yeah. And without going into further, like, you also have to be willing to burn the boats. Like, you have to be willing to do things at 100% and say like, is this how the best person does it? Well, I have to aspire to do that, then half-ass it, or like kind of dip my toes in the water. It's like, that's only going to get you so far. Like, if you're trying to be like a jiu-jitsu practitioner, it's like, well, you want a black belt? Well, showing up once a week is not going to get you there, or you need to accept the reality that's going to take 20 years. It's like, you're going to need to go multiple times a week, do the tournaments, do the bullshit, right? Get tapped out. Like, and that's a totally different realm, but it's one of those things where you kind of need to understand that, like, dipping your toes in doesn't look at podcasting. It's like, at some point you were like, oh, I have to up the production value. I have to get acoustics. I have to get a better camera. I have to get lighting. It's like, some people just go, no, I'm good at, it's like, okay, well then you're going to stay exactly where you're at. And you need to have the self-awareness that like you put yourself there. It wasn't the fact that people aren't listening. It's the fact that you didn't make it a desirable enough product for people to want to listen to.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
And as always, to everyone listening, there is a place for you in this chaotic world. Never lose hope, strengthen your faith, and keep it long term. Ryan, Macdougall, everyone, peace.
That's awesome.
That's it, brother.
That's wicked.